Hello and welcome to the second edition of Weekend Markets, Saturday, the 18th of November, in case you're wondering. And I'm here with Steve Deacon from BizTech Academy. How are you today, Steve?
I'm good, Zach. How are you? Sorry to get you up early again on a Saturday morning, but I do apologise.
No, well, it's probably easy, even though obviously today the alarm didn't go off, so I just woke up naturally at 5 minutes after I should, which is not bad actually. It's the body obviously subconsciously tells you that you've got to get up for Steve.
I was sitting here like a lemon in a Panama hat, so at least we're there. We got there in the end.
Right, I won't say anything about that. You're in Singapore, which makes me very irritated because I'm freezing to death here. How's the experience been?
I mean, it's great. I mean, I've been here on and off since 2014. I was expated over here in my sort of previous corporate life, if you like, and then I left in 17, having found who is now my wife. We came back to the UK a little bit, and then came back here about a year and a half ago. It's great. I mean, it's hot. I mean, I know you laugh because it's cold there, but it's anywhere here between 29 and a half degrees and 30 degrees, 365 days of the year, with 100+% of humidity. So it is hot, but it's a great place. You've been here yourself?
Well, actually, I mean, the thing is, I miss all the things that Great Britain has. You know, the Mayor of London, the pubs, the food, the what do you call it, Cornish pasties, the
Yeah.
professions, the Sweeney, the Beatles, all these things you've got no contact with any of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, you've got the rain and the cold and the inflation and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, each to their own, right? I'm a resident here now. Whether I sort of ever forego my British passport and take a passport here, who knows, right? It's maybe too early days for that. But my ties in the UK are pretty much gone. But that said, I plan to be over at Christmas time, and maybe we can meet up, and maybe we can even get some sort of social gathering with a few followers. Maybe that would work.
Yes, with the Cornish pasties and the steak and kidney pie and all that stuff, right?
I'll bring a coat. I'll bring a flat cap as opposed to a Panama hat. It might be more suitable.
Well, you get shot anyway around here, in fact. So the market's a bit better than we were hoping.
I was having a look at the end of the week this morning, my time, and what I sort of jumped out at me was that the major UK indices, for the first time for a long time, actually beat the US indices on the week. That is, I think the FTSE closed literally just above 7,500. Right, I think it held that level at the end of the week, up 2%. The 254%, and the AIM, which is really interesting, was up another 2.5% on the week. And if you look at it over the last 3 weeks, that's over 7%. And we sort of alluded to this last week. I'm not sure whether you agree with me, but I do think that we're sort of turning a corner here. And with the inflation figures we saw in the week as well, both sides of the pond, they were encouraging. So maybe the bear is exiting the room and the bull is starting to walk through the door.
Well, that could be the case, but you have to remember there's a very fine line between turning the corner and going around the bend.
It's a bit like the other phrase, which is there's a fine line between a hair of the dog and a 3-day bender.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. So this is all good stuff. But I was looking forward to, I suppose, at this time of the year, with my buy November, sell February, which I suppose so far is just about working. We're certainly in the window dressing period now.
What do you mean by that? That we're sort of just there's not a great deal of substance behind it. We're just still waiting, seeing. Is that what you mean?
I mean, it's all those with who may be looking to get bonuses in the city will be adjusting their books accordingly.
If that is the case, Zach, then it would be probably rude of myself and yourself to not try and hang on to their coattails, right?
Yeah, I hope that we get an invite, to whatever party they'll have. No, I don't know whether that goes on, but as I said, I think it is that sort of November, February effect. Seeing there's some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of inflation and interest rates, which has kicked in this month, coincidentally with my rule. And then in the UK, you've got the hope that with the autumn statement on Wednesday, the Chancellor will be so desperate to win votes, he'll actually reduce the taxes that should never have been raised in the first place.
Zach, help me out here. When is the UK general election?
Well, Richie told me it's going to be October the 16th next year.
Is that right?
Yeah, he said don't tell anyone, but that's when he's picked that day.
Well, to be fair, Zach, we don't get a great deal of viewers yet, so I'm sure it'll be kept quiet. If we said in a few months' time, it might be common knowledge then.
Not being as quite as famous as maybe one should be. So that's what it is. But no, I think it is any time, I suppose, up to December, and then obviously the rule is if he goes for anything in the last, right at the end, he'll never win. So if he actually wants to win, he needs to go for probably May. May would
next
be
year.
The one. Yeah, May next year would be the one. So no, it would mean that he'd been in power for sort of a year and a half. So it looks good on the CV. Prime Minister 2020. It doesn't look like it was just like a flash in the pan. And I think he's got all his US jobs lined up as well in Silicon Valley, because he went there on the last time. It's that sort of exit plan. He'll parachute himself out.
And maybe he's honing Mr. Cameron for a return. You never know with his recent appointment.
Cameron will be honing for a return himself. He might be a double dip prime minister. It would be fantastic, wouldn't it? 2010, 2016, then 2024.
That would mean that, even though he did commit to following through the Brexit decision, whatever the reason was, he could come out the other end and still be smelling of roses, right? I say that obviously a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
The only problem with that was just pride, vanity, and arrogance. It was nothing serious. If you don't have those, you don't actually go into politics. There's no point otherwise.
David, if you're watching this, I apologize.
It was a bit like King Canute. You're trying to turn the tide and everything and show off. So there we are. But in terms of any stocks, because I know we can waffle on about these things for quite some time. In terms of the stocks of the week, I wanted to start off with your favorite Premier African, because it went to a new low. But I didn't know whether that was because of your commentary or just it was actually something to do with.
Oh, did you watch it? Did you watch my passionate plea?
Unfortunately, I missed it. I was too busy speaking to Rishi.
Well, I'll bring you up to speed. Just obviously, I wouldn't want you to feel you're missing out on anything. Again, you obviously know there was an RNS. I think it was the 14th Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday. It was a very, very strong implication that the shipments that were committed or are committed to CanMax in November, December will not happen, and that resulted in I think it ended up being 19% dip in the share price down to the low 20s. Now I think there's a Q&A on, I think it's 4 p.m. UK time on Monday with Mr. Roach. Obviously, this is a pre-written Q&A, so people are sending in questions now, and he'll respond in whichever way he feels fit on that particular session. But there's a lot of concern and a lot of anger in many ways in social media about people feeling that they've had their wool pulled over their eyes with by both Mr. Roach and the CEO of Stark Resources, the main contractor there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Monday. If George comes back and says that he's going to resign, then maybe the share price will boom. If he comes back and says that CanMax have decided to kick the potential early payments of $1.5 or even $3 million into 2024, then I think the share price may also go up again. But if he confirms that shipments are not going to be made and CanMax are going to pull in the cash and there's likely to be another raise associated with that, then I see us back down into the low 20s again. But I guess we'll just have to see. I will say and caveat everything I've just said by that I personally still feel that Premier African Minerals as a business has a future. I've said very clearly in the video I did, I think it needs a change in leadership, but that's that will run its course as the case may be. But it's just not a very good situation it's in at the moment. But we'll see. I mean, it's interesting, really interesting. You got any thoughts on it? Do you follow Prem a lot?
I follow the share price. The soap opera of the news events and everything else seems to be rather too rich for my blood. But between the sort of the operational side uncertainties and then the financial side uncertainties, it would be you sort of want something a little bit more boring. But I do know that it's sort of a retail investor favorite. And it's always interesting to see how CEOs like George grapple and sort of spin the plates and juggle and everything else. And the only thing he's never going to resign. Not when he's having so much fun.
Well, no, I agree with you. And jokes aside, I'm absolutely sure he personally won't resign. Sorry, there is a growing lack of confidence in his leadership. Not only just in social media, but you can see it in all media. 2 weeks ago, he forewent his chairmanship, and that was given over to another individual on an interim basis, and now he's only the CEO. So that there's a possibility of a board vote of no confidence, possibly. I mean, we saw it with Open. It's certainly an opportunity for that to happen if it continues. The management has not been great, so something has to change at some stage or other. Either he has to perform and take the responsibility as CEO, in my view, or something has to radically change. So so we'll see how it goes.
Well, I think you say that the management hasn't performed, etc. They're trying to do something really difficult. They're juggling all the bits and all the sort of the variables there, especially money. And small caps are normally underfunded because if you're properly funded, you probably dilute shareholders. If you're not, then obviously you're trying not to avoid dilution, et cetera, et cetera. And in this market, it's almost impossible to find money. So do we know whether he's just, somebody's just bitten off more than they can chew, or this is something very difficult, or whether there's incompetence or the misjudgment? Do you see my point?
My concerns is not necessarily the operation per se. It's the way that the progress of the business has been managed and communicated out into the marketplace, because there has been contradictions, smoke and mirrors. One statement says this, another statement says that, which has caused a great deal of volatility in the share price. That's nothing to do with the operation. As well as the right grade of product in the ground there. A plant is being built to come from a manufacturing background. At some stage or other, that plant will produce and it will make a product. The way the business is managed from a outward-facing point of view is being run, it's not particularly good, and that's caused a lot of people to get a lot of shareholders to lose money and to confusion about the status of the business. And that is the CEO's job, right? The CEO's job is there to manage the perception of the business and make sure that he pleases shareholders and increases shareholder value, and that's not happening.
So you don't think it's somebody biting off more than they can chew or promising more than they can deliver?
No, it's not so much that. I mean, they are doing something with the plant there that is, arguably a first off, right? And therefore they're going to face problems, and I get that, and I'm okay with that. I've been through developments of new products in my life a great deal, so I understand how that works. But there is a way of project managing that and communicating the status of that in such a way that it causes minimal disruption to the outside stakeholders, if you like, and also internal stakeholders. And I personally believe that could have been done substantially better. And it's not as if it's just a one-off. It's been like this for the last 6 months plus, and maybe even longer. And I just think to take the business to what it can really be, and therefore in the interest of the company and the shareholders, a change is required. Again, it's just my opinion, right? But we'll see what happens.
Sometimes you get these green flags for the market. I don't know if you're following Hotel Chocolat, but there was a massive premium bid on that company. Do you think that's a sign that we're turning around?
Well, I don't know that particular bid or that particular company, so I can't comment on that particular one. But I do think we've just talked about inflation, and we talked about interest rate decisions. In the last discussion we had, we also alluded to house building stocks, right? And for what as well as I do, that when you start having a downturn, especially when you're expecting interest rate rises, one of the first sectors that dips is house builders, right? And today, if you look at some of the premium, or not say the premium, but the main house builders in the UK, and I looked at sort of 5 main ones this morning. We've got PSN, Bellway, Taylor Wimpey, Barratt, Redrow. If you look at the last month, they're up respectively 24%, 13%, 17%, 19.5%. 11%. This particular sector, which can be a leading indicator for a turn of the corner, is certainly starting to show that. And so again, I go back to what I said a moment ago. When you think about all these things, that, for example, that inflation changes, the fact that in the US, the VIX is now, I know it's like 13 something, right? Bitcoin, crypto is starting to turn again, right? All of those particular things that suggest that we're getting now out of the bear market and potentially turning forward are showing there. And, if you take the view that, there's no fire without smoke, or smoke without fire, then I do think we are turning. I can't comment on the companies mentioned about, but certainly when I look at those sort of indicators, I suggest we are.
Yeah, so the news this week was that Mars bought Hotel Chocolat, which is like eye-wateringly expensive chocolate, sort of in the high street and at
Right.
travel hubs. So it's like £3.75 for for a relatively small bar of very premium chocolate, which I'm too poor to
Well,
buy anymore.
that's a Mars bar in Singapore.
So Mars actually bought the company for 534 million, which was 169.8% premium on the overnight close.
Wow.
You see what I mean? So I mean, there's no way. I mean,
Yeah.
Mars is Mars and everything else, so they've got the money. But two factors there: one, that the UK is so cheap relative to the US in terms of the stock
Yeah.
market. So probably the 170%, if it was a normal market, it probably would have been 30%. Because the share
And who
would have been much higher.
and sorry, who bought it? Mars bought it.
Yes, literally Mars. Yeah, Mars a day. Those people.
And again, I'm not close to this particular sector. Mars is a UK registered company or a US listed company?
I presume it's Mars, US giant. It's the ones that makes literally the Mars bars. Remember those when you were a kid?
No, of course. I'm also intrigued about, you talked about the premium and the price, but of course the pound is still very cheap, right? So that obviously helps if they are American company that trades in dollars. That's also one of the reasons why it might be looking at finding it attractive. Although the pound did go up a little bit this week. Yeah.
Yes, and so the financial journalists, being what they are, they always manage to turn a complete triumph into a sort of slight pie in the face. So they sort of said, this marks the latest company to be swiped off the London Stock Exchange by a foreign buyer. Right. I mean, as if that was bad news. But it's fantastic news. You might have to sucker somebody into paying, over the odds for your company, and they come up with that angle. It's fantastic. We should be rejoicing that £500 million has come into this country. So we need the money.
No, I didn't see that news, but I fully agree with you. I should look that up. Look at that when you get off this call. Interesting.
That was one of the good bits of news. Any other stocks that you think sort of?
There was a couple of things that I noted down. We talked about this stock again last week, but I think it's right to say it because the news came over. Kodal Minerals. It's an interesting one because the share price has been rising quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 weeks because they had their funding confirmed, $117.75 million from Chinese Hanan Group. As a sort of partner, if you like. And the money came through. They finally got the cash this week. They also announced a 40% increase in their resources in the ground on their Bugani site. So that was all very positive. And the price went up. It touched sort of, I think, 0.75 pence. I think it touched at one point, but now it's crashed. And a lot of people obviously panic. When I say crashed, that's not fair. It dropped to, I think the lowest was maybe 0.51. So a good percentage drop after the news came out. And people were a bit surprised about this. I've been talking about it for a while and thought that, a bit like Premier African Minerals, Kodal Minerals now is in the position where it has cash, which is great. It has a partner, which is great, but it's still got to build the plant, right? So the big milestone of getting the money came in. People bought the rumor, they sold the facts, they took their money out, and now nothing's going to happen for Kodal Minerals for the next 3 to 6 months while they start buying equipment and building roads and putting foundations in the ground and starting building a plant. So we're going to become a boring stock. And with the little volatility, the traders are going to move away, the money's going to move out, the share price is going to drop a little and it's going to settle. And I think that's what's happening at this point in time. But I would certainly say if anybody's looking at this, and of course, as always, not financial advice, keep an eye on Kodal Minerals because at some stage as we go through next year and it starts to get some good news about the plant being developed and, getting ready for production, I can see some movement again in that particular share price. And the only other one I jotted down, I don't know if you know GS Technologies, but GS Technologies is it's obviously a UK listed company, but they're a Singaporean management team, ironically enough, and they're trying to create. Ultimately, they're trying to create a neobank, sort of Revolut style, that sort of thing. And part of that, they have sort of 3 arms to it, but one of the arms of it is a crypto exchange called GS20. Now, this particular crypto exchange is going through a soft launch, so it really isn't launched at this point in time. I think you can register on it. I think you can register an account, but it only has sort of maybe 9 trading pairs, so it's not a Binance in any which way. But on a sort of lower tier crypto news website, a couple of news websites owned actually by the same person, oddly enough, they reported large volumes of Bitcoin and Ethereum trading going through the GS20 account, which the retailers picked up on. And all of a sudden, literally within 24 hours, in fact, I think it was probably within 3 or 4 hours of the day of the news sort of coming out, the share price went from 0.8 of a pence to 2 pence, 160% in a matter of hours. And I did some research on this and ultimately did release a video, but it ultimately the owner of the website where the news came out said, "Oh, I've made a mistake. It wasn't really news. It's absolutely incorrect. Those volumes are not right." But the share price has held up. It's sort of closed the week at 1.5 pence, I think it is. So still up, a great deal, almost double from its 0.8, before this news. And they've also raised some cash this week, the company. So it'll be interesting to watch that one. I'm concerned that one actually will drop, because I think really the position of the company hasn't changed a great deal since before this fake news came out. And I would have guessed at some stage or other this is going to drip down. So I think people need to be a little bit careful of that one, but I may be wrong. But it was an interesting watch through the week. Certainly was.
Yeah, no, I saw one or two of there's a few sort of people who are naysayers on Twitter, and so they sort of said, "Oh, GS Technologies is going to crash, and so is going to crash." And it's quite interesting that GS has actually held up very well. And it might be that ironically the market embraces it, etc., etc. Because obviously I look at the chart, I didn't know that there was that sort of comedy news going on behind the scenes, but I think it closed at 1.5, as you said, and 1.2, 1.3 looks like support. So while we're above that, it might actually deliver some decent upside, but especially just because the light has been shone on the company, so it might be one of those situations where there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Well, and there's some positive sentiment, generally around crypto, right? Although GST isn't a crypto firm, I mean, ultimately they're trying to create a neo bank where they'll do transactions across a blockchain with their own stablecoin, and they've been refused, or I'll rephrase that, they haven't had their stablecoin approved in the UK yet, and that looks like it's some way away. So I'm a little bit concerned they're not going to get to where they need to do, they want to anytime soon. But you're right, they've got some good publicity. Crypto's getting some good publicity at this point in time. So there may be some additional growth, or certainly some underpinning of where it is today, as you point out from the charts.
For the coming week, the week ahead.
Yeah, I released my video early on today, just giving some thoughts on the week ahead. One of the things I want to do this week is, another one of the companies I follow is Canadian Overseas Petroleum. And they released their Q3 numbers earlier this week, which I haven't had a chance to digest yet. So I want to go through those numbers and have a look at those, which will be the first job on Monday morning, to be honest with you.
My recommendation would be not to look, but because it's been such a nightmare. But at least it changed. The management was changed there,
yes,
et cetera, and somebody else is going to have a go. But if that one can get out of its current woes, that would be absolutely amazing. But I think I'm looking forward to the Chancellor's the autumn statement, as I said at the beginning. So I'm looking forward to him getting reducing inheritance tax. I think that would be a good thing to do. No personal interest, of course, obviously. I mean, I'm just nothing to do with me at all, and things like that. But hoping that the government here will reverse its I think mad taxation policies. I think I'm sure that people don't get taxed in Singapore like they get taxed in the UK, and that might be one of the reasons, apart from the very steady climate that you have there, for being there.
No, I don't know how much, without going into a boring, lengthy discussion about Singapore taxation, but the income tax rate is it is slightly staggered, but you don't really tend to get much higher than 15%, which is good. There's no dividend tax.
Can I just shoot myself now?
No dividend tax, no capital gains tax.
So how's the economy going there? You would have thought it would have crashed. You would have thought it would have crashed with no.
So what happens is the tax is put on to what I would call mainly on consumables. So, for example, if you want to buy something like a car, Right. So if you buy a car, it's exceedingly expensive. If you buy, I don't know what cars cost in the UK now, but if you buy a Golf for £30,000, for argument's sake, in Singapore, that Golf would be probably closer to £150,000 with all the taxes and various things that go on with it. If you buy wine here, it'll be at least double the price, probably 3 times the price of what it would be in the UK. So how they gain the taxes is that the individuals choose really how they want to pay for the tax, because if they want to buy wine and buy a nice car, then they'll be contributing a lot to the economy. But if they don't, and they don't have the money to do that, it's not. And the way they balanced it, it works out. The economy is going well here, and it's it's a good quality of life. To be fair, it's just very expensive. If you went to an average downtown bar, right, and you bought a pint of whatever lager or something, right, it probably would cost you the equivalent of, I don't know, somewhere between £10 and £14 a pint. Something like that.
It's a bit like being in Mayfair.
Yeah, quite possibly.
That's about double, but no, that's interesting. No, I think that it should be around 20% across the board, and you get people to pay tax. And the problem with the system here is that anybody who actually makes money will just park their money somewhere else or put it in a tax evasion type of unit. What the people who could be paying the most tax don't. So it's just literally
the big attraction for someone like yourself or myself or whatever as an investor in Singapore is the no capital gain and no dividend tax, right? I mean, that's the biggie.
I mean, it's ridiculous. We've got the worst bear market here we've had in most people have said ever, in its own way. And if in the unlikely event that Premier African doubles, you're paying, whatever it is, 30%, 28% of what capital gains is on that. It's not a problem I've had for quite some time, so I'm not familiar with the rules there. But you see what I'm saying. So it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And then there's all the headlines saying, "Oh, the stock market's dying. What do we do? How do we fix it?" Well, you've just taxed it and regulated it to death. Yeah. And then you're wondering why there's anything wrong. I mean, it beggars belief, actually. And it's just, we've got all the, I've got to be in my bonnet about this. Only one rant this week. But it is unbelievable that, whoever does this, whoever got us to this state, they're not accountable at all. But, I mean, for instance, the one that really drives me mad is when they changed the main board or the standard list from 750 grand minimum market cap to 30 million. And then wonder why there are no companies coming onto the stock market. 750 to 30 million. Who did they ask? Coco the Clown?
That brings me on to what I think is almost a final subject. I think I dropped you a note at the beginning. Last time I did get one comment when I posted the video, and it said that we should change the name from Weekend Markets to Weekend Rant. And I should still ask people.
I forgot this week, so it's not. It's only just a little one there, just tiny mini rant. I'm obviously in a better mood this week.
Well, you had an extra 20 minutes in bed, right?
Yes, exactly. Steve, thank you very much, and
my pleasure.
Speak to you this time next week, hopefully a bit earlier. Actually, hopefully the alarm clock will go off.
That's fine. Are we on for? Yeah, I'll ping you anyway. All right. Have a great week, Zach. I'll talk to you soon.